So there's a lot to get through today. I'm going to cover a number of things in today's show, but I'm also not going to be able to get to everything. So this feels like the right time to finally announce and open it up to the public. Go to DeFrancoDailyDownload.com or click that top link in the description down below to sign up to my brand new newsletter. I send it out in the mornings. It includes stories that, yes, I do cover in the show, but also a lot of other stuff that I'm not able to get to that I think is important that people know. And in addition to it being getting as much news as possible, as fast as possible, it can also serve as a reminder to watch the show in case YouTube, I don't know, sometimes suppresses the videos. But yeah, DeFrancoDailyDownload.com I'm also including as a top link down below. I'm planning to do some fun giveaways for those who subscribe to it in the first few weeks. There's also a system if you refer your friends. It's a whole thing, but definitely first thing, go subscribe. I'm also pushing to that for the same reason last Wednesday I said to share that video, which by the way, thank you. I also, same thing here, if in addition to the liking and the commenting, you can share this video because it's at a higher risk of being suppressed. Because while we're gonna cover a lot today, the first thing we're gonna talk about today are the news and updates and the general continuation of the David Dobrik, Dirty Dom, and now Jeff Wittek situation, even though he was only a minor player last week, but he has now thrust himself into the spotlight over the weekend. But yeah, first thing, let's talk about the continued fallout around David. Yeah, if you missed last Wednesday's show, we talked about a major piece that Insider put out where a girl accused Dirty Dom of raping her while she was too drunk to consent back in 2018 when she was with the Vlog Squad to film a video. Right after that article was published, we saw David Dobrik putting out an apology on a smaller podcast channel instead of his main one. David got slammed for that video, not only because he put it on a channel that was so small, seemingly as a way to try and hide it, minimize the situation. He was also slammed for calling it Let's Talk, but disabling likes and dislikes as well as the comment section, making the video so short, and also people saying that he didn't take enough ownership for what was going on. Instead, using this vague legalese language, instead of really addressing this head on for how serious of a situation and accusation this was. And while people and the public in general were having their reactions, there was also the question of what are gonna happen with the brands. David Dobrik has these huge partnerships. We started seeing a lot of angry people message those sponsors. So what we've seen so far is you actually have brands dropping their partnerships with him, including DoorDash, Dollar Shave Club, EA Sports, HelloFresh, with others reviewing their working relationship with him. We also saw the president of the women's soccer team David was an owner of, Angel City Football Club, even saying that David is no longer an owner. We've also seen this start to impact his latest business venture, Dispo, right, that social network that he's launched, but now one of his major backers, Spark Capital, tweeted yesterday, "In light of recent news about the Vlog Squad and David Dobrik, the co-founder of Dispo, we have made the decision to sever all ties with the company. We have stepped down from our position on the board, and we are in the process of making arrangements to ensure we do not profit from our recent investment in Dispo." With Dispo then releasing a statement saying David has chosen to step down from the board and leave the company to not distract from the company's growth. So big news, but also at the same time for a lot of people, they're going to say, well, that's not enough to kind of make Dispo not toxic. With people asking the question, would he still not benefit and profit from the company's success? And actually, this is still a developing story. As I was filming this bit, we got more news. Venture capital firm 776, which invested in Dispo, released a statement calling the allegations extremely troubling, saying we've been working closely with Dispo over the last week and are in full support of their decision to part ways with David. And adding, we have made the decision to donate any profits from our investment in Dispo to an organization working with survivors of sexual assault. So big continued fallout around David Dobrik, and then yesterday, a member of the Vlog Squad, Jeff Wittek, inadvertently made an important but less focused on aspect of the story much bigger. Most of the story, the way that it's been reported, has been focused understandably on the accusation that Dirty Dom raped this girl, that she blacked out, as well as the accusations that David Dobrik created, fostered, benefited from this environment, and his weak response and lack of other response once this story came out. But of course there's also been the question of, well, who bought the alcohol? The accuser, who in the insider story goes as Hannah, though that's not her real name, said she was 20 at the time. She and reportedly several of the other girls there were under the legal age to drink, so there was the question of how did they get the alcohol? And regarding that, in the insider article, you had two people providing a potential answer. You had Trisha Paytas, a former Vlog Squad member who was there for part of the night, saying that Jeff bought it, as well as a witness who was friends with the accuser, saying that Jeff and Todd of the Vlog Squad left and came back with liquor. And the last time we covered this, we talked about how Wittek is quoted in the article denying that it was him, saying the same on social media as well. But apparently he didn't think that was enough, and he released a video yesterday called My Truth. I'm gonna link to the whole thing down below. It's a 21-minute, 47-second video. You even see the text. Watch the whole 20-minute video so nothing is taken out of context. Yeah, link down below so you can watch that. But yeah, he puts out this video where he emphasizes he has nothing but sympathy for the victim. He doesn't want to discredit her. He just wants to clear his name and involvement, saying he was completely unaware of the sexual assault allegations until he was contacted about the story. He also implies that most people involved in making the video that night probably had no idea what was really going on. Then we see Jeff kind of shift into talking about how he's lost a lot of brand partnerships because he was mentioned in the article. He then goes on to slam the reporter who wrote it, Kat Tenbarge. He accuses her of twisting his words and not doing her research, saying that she did this for personal profit because the story was initially behind a paywall, which, by the way, even I'm someone that's like, it felt weird that it was behind a paywall, but it's worth noting that she has no control over that. She is just the journalist in this situation. Also, in his video, he goes on to say,
the only one that was allegedly saying that I bought the alcohol was Trisha. Trisha wasn't even there.
But that's not accurate if you read the article, and it's the original article. It's not like an updated piece that then included it. It was, yes, Trisha and another witness. He then goes on to play a clip from a chat that he had with Kat after the article came out because he called her to ask if she felt bad for what she did to him. To which, I mean, if you listen to her words, she essentially says she's sorry that he's dealing with all this backlash, but she stands by her choice to include him in the piece.
Or are you sorry that, like, you worded it that way, though? Like, it sounds like...
I mean, I'm sorry to hear it because ultimately, like, I had to do that for my job. Like, that's just, like, what I had to do with the information that I was presented with.
And it is really worth noting here that at no point in the video does he provide any real evidence that she twisted his words or lied. All of this also leading to the journalist responding herself on Twitter, writing, Jeff chose to leave out the fact that Sarah, one of the women there, remembered him and Todd coming back with the whiskey. Jeff spends his video trying to undermine my credibility by making false statements and playing out of context clips from our conversations. I stand by my reporting and so does Insider. She also came with receipts, uploading a piece of their interview prior to the article coming out where they discussed if he bought drinks. And you can hear her specifically say who the sources are.
It's from Trisha. It's also from the other girls.
She also addressed frustrations Jeff had with a line in the article that read, he didn't think Todd Smith would have bought it either, though he said Smith loves whiskey. Are you Jeff saying she took that last comment about whiskey from a separate part of the conversation to make it seem like he was suggesting that Todd could have bought it? But according to a clip Kat shared, that is what he said, and it wasn't taken out of context or from this like million miles away statement. Also saying that she only apologized to Jeff because he told her that people were calling him a rapist and a pedophile, saying I was apologizing because he had to experience that, and adding that he recorded the second conversation without her consent and was using manipulation tactics to try to get her to say things he could use against her. Now, with this whole situation, the smartest thing Jeff could have done is to not release his video in the first place. Especially because, in my opinion, at the end, he not so transparently tried to turn his army into just an attack on Kat, among numerous problems with the video. But then after he uploaded it, the second smartest thing he could have done was just to leave it there. If you looked at the likes to dislikes on his video, the general comments of like, oh, I'm so glad Jeff's speaking on this, his core fan base seemed very much in his corner. He could have just left it at that. But he then, and I don't know if this came from panic, I know that he also had eye surgery. I don't know if he's on pain meds. Maybe he was filled with a lot of confidence because his video was received so well by a lot of people. But he decides, yes, I'm going to call in to the Frenemies podcast, which of course is hosted by Trisha Paytas and Ethan Klein, who have very much been leading the charge on this David Dobrik story. With Insider kind of having taken the baton on the most serious accusations, then you see that story popping in the New York Times, but Frenemies has very much led the charge on this. And I don't know what is going on in his mind that he thinks, yes, let me go on this live podcast. And the reason it was such a stupid thing for him to do is almost immediately you see how unprepared he was. You know how you would always see those headlines and video titles like Jon Stewart eviscerates blah blah blah, or Ben Shapiro destroys blah blah blah. Trisha and Ethan absolutely steamrolled Jeff Wittek. One, they get him to admit, and we learn that Jeff Wittek didn't even read the full article.
Have you read the article?
I have read the article afterwards, yeah, bits and pieces, yeah.
So you haven't read the whole article, is what you're saying?
No.
And then they seem to catch him in a lie, or just for legal reasons, we'll say a misremembering, or I don't know, something that just doesn't look great. Jeff saying he was only at Dom's apartment for 30 to 45 minutes earlier in the night, close to 11 o'clock. But then this moment happens.
What I have here is a photo at the end of the night taken at 1:18 a.m. from one of the witnesses, one of the girls there. It has in it all of you guys outside, Todd, you, Jonah, David.
I don't see the photo anywhere.
It'll pop up on the stream. And then what you see here is one of the girlfriends holding up Hannah, who was the victim, because she's blackout drunk.
That leads to a back and forth. Jeff still saying he doesn't remember being there that long, it leading then to this.
I certainly wasn't there when they were having sex.
Well, sure, they were in a private room. You weren't in the room when they were having
No, I wasn't even in the apartment.
So you were
at all.
So you left and then you came back at the end of the night?
I guess I did come back. Yeah.
Oh.
I know, as ridiculous as it sounds, but I lived down the street. To my understanding, I think David left too. I think everybody left, and
What?
then
And then they all came back and saw the girl
That
blacked
doesn't
out
make any sense,
and
Jeff.
decided to post the vlog the next day.
I'm sure Dom and a few people stayed, but I think
I have this photos of you guys at the end of the night. How is it
I
that
probably should have touched up on this with other people to get the exact story straight, but I just
everybody?
figured I'd
What
call-
story straight? The truth or not?
I mean, it was all over the place. Also, as far as other elements of that night, Jeff insisted that pretty much everything you see him do in the video is pretend and staged, saying that when he peeks into the room, nothing's actually happening at that time. He's just acting like something's there for the video, saying everyone was fully clothed and not touching each other at that time. But at the same time, you have people saying Jeff Wittek saying that completely contradicts what we've seen David Dobrik say on podcasts.
You know, he didn't have sex with him unless we saw it with our own eyes. So
But yeah, like I said, we're only touching on some of the things here. You have a 20-minute Jeff video. You have Wittek on the Frenemies podcast for about an hour and a half. I'm linking to both down below if you want to dive deeper on this. But just wow. I mean, if Wittek keeps losing sponsorships and this starts hurting him in a negative way, he could always make money by launching a masterclass in self-incrimination. I don't know what that was. It was like watching a live stream of someone walking onto and then sitting down on train tracks with a train oncoming. How are you going to accuse a journalist of selective editing, twisting your words, taking something from over here that's really far away, connecting it here, when that appears to be what you did, and you didn't even read the full article? It makes no sense, and it feels like it has to be like one of and or multiple of four things. You're either panicking and just saying random sounds, and or you're a liar, and or you're an idiot, and or you're on some sort of pain medication, or there is like a mental injury, and I do not say that with ill intent. There's an aspect to this story that I haven't been able to get people to talk on the record about that deals with his injury. But yeah, I say that because I'm just generally lost and confused based off of his actions in the last 24, 36 hours. But yeah, like I said, that is the story, some of my personal opinions and takeaway from it, and of course now I pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts around all of this? But from that, let's take a quick breather, and I want to thank the sponsor of today's show, Squarespace, which, by the way, a huge thank you to Squarespace and all of our sponsors for enabling us to be able to talk about really heavy topics that sometimes get suppressed, sometimes often get demonetized. But yeah, over the past year, I know a lot of you beautiful bastards have found some really amazing passion projects and what truly makes you happy. Whether that means you're finally getting your independent business off the ground, or creating a place to share your homemade goods, new favorite hobby, obsession, or maybe even just making a personal blog to help you cope with the world around you. Squarespace is there to help. And it's so easy. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. And creating a beautiful website with Squarespace's all-in-one platform has never been so simple. It's extremely intuitive and easy to use. Plus, with Squarespace, you get access to all their marketing tools and analytics and personalized support from their award-winning customer care team via email or live chat. Whatever you need, they are available 24/7 to help out. So if you want to check out why so many people love it, see if it is right for you, go ahead and start your free trial today over at squarespace.com/Phil. And when you realize you love it, make sure you enter an offer code Phil to get 10% off your first purchase. Then, in vaccination news, let's start with the most American story ever. Krispy Kreme has launched a campaign to entice people to get their vaccinations by giving free donuts to people that show proof that they are vaccinated. With them tweeting, starting today, bring your vaccine card to a Krispy Kreme shop and get one free original glazed donut. With the campaign running to the end of 2021 in case you haven't been able to get your shot yet. And while some love this news because really any way you can entice people to get their vaccine right now is being applauded, but at the same time you have people saying we have an obesity problem in general. Also with COVID, you have higher death rates with people that have obesity. Some going as far to say this is like Marlboro offering free cigarettes for getting a flu shot. But the pushback we've seen to those statements is most people are just gonna get a donut. This isn't something like nicotine. And personally, I agree with those people. It is a single donut, Eugene. Obesity is a nationwide problem, also for myself. Like, I'm fine with you clutching your pearls, but let's just let the pandemic wind down a little more, okay? Also, as far as other companies doing things to try and help with the pandemic and testing, we saw DoorDash today announcing their new initiative to provide same-day on-demand delivery of FDA-authorized COVID-19 test collection kits. And this is big news because, as Axios explained, this initiative could go a long way in helping make at-home COVID-19 testing more accessible as many Americans prepare to re-enter workplaces and school. With the initial kits being available in Baltimore, Chicago, Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, Minneapolis, and Phoenix, with plans to expand to other cities later in the year. And in addition to that, on another of the company's platforms, DoorDash Drive, they're going to power same-day delivery of Vault Health COVID-19 saliva test kits in 20 locations. And then, in a different kind of COVID news, we look to Florida because officials in Miami Beach, Florida have extended a curfew for at least 3 weeks in an effort to crack down on spring breakers. Right, so as we talked about before, over the last few weeks, the city has been packed with partiers ignoring social distancing and masking guidelines. Right, despite the ongoing pandemic, officials have said that this year there have been both more visitors and more disruptions than previously previous years, with police reporting fights breaking out, property destruction, several stampedes, including one that started after someone fired a gun into the air. In fact, according to the Miami Beach Police Department, since early February, about 1,000 arrests have been made and 80 firearms have been seized. And very notably here, about 51% of the arrests involve non-Florida residents, and police in neighboring cities have sent officers to help with crowd management. And, you know, things really began to escalate this week, and especially over the weekend, with tons of videos showing people partying in the streets, shoulder to shoulder on the city's iconic Ocean Drive. And so, as a result, the city imposed a state of emergency and on Saturday imposed an 8 p.m. curfew in the entertainment district. But that also failed to stop the partiers. So then you saw police respond by sending in SWAT teams and personnel from multiple law enforcement agencies and riot gear, who then broke up the crowds with pepper balls, a move that has been criticized by many, especially among black activists and advocacy groups in the city, who claimed that many of the people that they dispersed were black. But to that, you had city officials saying that they were targeting conduct, not groups of people, and that police had fired the pepper balls after a group rushed them. And so what we ended up seeing is that on Sunday, they moved to extend the curfew, which was initially set for just 72 hours, but now will go until April 12th, when spring break usually ends, with the leaders also voting to extend the state of emergency until at least this evening. Right, and so under the current rules, Ocean Drive will be closed to all vehicle and pedestrian traffic from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. 4 nights a week, with exceptions for residents, hotel visitors, and employees in the area. Also, bridges and other main causeways into the city will be blocked. And so we have many people saying that this move is a major concession for Miami Beach and Florida at large, right? I mean, both state and city leaders have been heavily encouraging tourists to come. That, despite the fact that Miami-Dade County, which houses Miami Beach, has recently seen one of the worst coronavirus outbreaks in the country. And Florida, I mean, it currently ranks in the top 10 states for highest cases per capita, and it's also seen increases in the last few weeks, with it also, by the way, being believed to be the state with the highest concentration of the highly contagious and possibly more lethal UK strain. But all of that isn't to say this is just a Florida problem. This goes beyond Florida, because many of the people that are in Florida for spring break are from out of state, right? They're from all over the country, and so there's a risk that they're going to spread this virus. Then, still kind of connected to COVID, let's talk about what's happening at the border. This, in part because during interviews yesterday, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas repeatedly claimed the southern border was closed and defended Biden's policies amid a record surge of migrant children seeking entry. Right? As we've talked about before, Biden has kept the Trump-era rule to let the U.S. expel almost all migrants on the grounds of preventing further spread of COVID-19, but he did also enact carve-outs for unaccompanied minors and asylum seekers who would otherwise be forced to stay in Mexico in often unsafe conditions while waiting for their trials. You know, that is something that Mayorkas hit on during his interview, saying that while the country is accepting children, they are not accepting families or adults, and urging migrant children not to make the dangerous journey to the United States. But many have hit back, arguing that by definition, letting children in means the border is not closed. Right? While the scope of this problem is not entirely clear right now, yesterday we did see reports coming out that government data showed that more than 9,400 children entered U.S. border custody last month, which is a record high for February. And that number is expected to be completely overshadowed by the figures for this month, because officials have allegedly encountered an average of more than 500 unaccompanied minors per day in the past 21 days, with the data also reportedly showing that the administration had at least 15,500 unaccompanied minors in custody at the end of last week, 10,500 of which were in the care of the Department of Health and Human Services, which provides long-term housing and support, but the other 5,000 are currently being kept in short-term Customs and Border Protection facilities where they are reportedly held in crowded and jail-like conditions. And so what we're seeing are Republicans blaming Biden's early policies for the surge, but Democrats in the Biden administration have said that it's actually the Trump administration that's responsible for the increase of people trying to cross the border, and that Biden just inherited the problem. And that argument is something that Mayorkas repeatedly made during his press circuit yesterday, arguing that Biden is having to rebuild an entire system that was dismantled by Trump. But here's the thing. Both sides are actually right and both sides are actually wrong here. And that's not both sidesism, it's just facts. Right, the number of encounters with unaccompanied minors had already been rising in the months before Biden took office. But at the same time, we've also seen massive spikes since Biden assumed office, with Border Patrol agencies reporting a 61% increase in encounters with migrant children since January, which is a 170% increase from last February and the largest influx since May 2019. And while experts have said that it's too early to tell exactly if Biden's policies have caused the surge, because these kinds of increases do come and go, both White House officials and people crossing the border themselves have acknowledged that the new president's promises of more humane border policy have been one of the driving factors. But regardless of who is at fault here, who is getting blamed, the situation has become a major flashpoint in the early days of this administration, which is also why you have Mayorkas and other administration officials saying they are working on solutions, including expanding capacity to hold children and looking at ways to improve Mexico's ability to hold migrants as well. But obviously there is a ton of pressure to enact serious and impactful policy here, and that pressure seems to be growing. growing. I mean, just today, for example, you had Axios publishing photos of a temporary overflow facility in Donna, Texas. The pictures, which offer a rare glimpse into the conditions at these facilities, were reportedly taken by a third party over the weekend and given to the outlet by a U.S. representative. And in them, you see tons of children packed into makeshift tents, not socially distanced, with Rapp, who gave Axios the photo, saying that each of these 8 pods in the facility had a 260-person occupancy, but as of Sunday, at least one had more than 400 minors, with him also seeming to call on Biden to do more, telling Axios that Border Patrol officials need help from the administration. But ultimately, that is where we are with the story right now. Obviously, we're going to keep our eyes on this. This is also going to be, I think, a defining moment for the administration. But yeah, for now, we have to wait and see. Which is also something we're going to have to do with this other news story about the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court announced this morning that it will consider whether or not to reimpose the death penalty for the man convicted of killing 3 people and injuring hundreds more in the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. The man, who confessed to helping conduct the attack, of course, was convicted back in 2015 of all 30 charges brought against him, with the court imposing 6 death sentences and 11 concurrent life sentences. But from there, an appeals court threw out the death sentences last July on the grounds that the judge overseeing the case had not properly vetted the jury for bias. From there, the Justice Department under Trump, which of course had resumed federal executions and prioritized doing so in its final year, filed an appeal. And although President Biden has said that he opposes capital punishment and actually promised to seek an end to the federal death penalty, his Justice Department has not withdrawn the Trump administration petition to reinstate the death sentence for the convicted bomber. And while the Supreme Court likely will not hear this case until October, when asked about it during a press conference today, the White House press secretary was incredibly vague about what Biden's plans were here. Now, very notably here, even if SCOTUS does rule in favor of reimposing the sentence, nothing actually forces Biden to schedule an execution date. But still, this case will possibly pose a very important test of Biden's stance on capital punishment early on in his administration. And so with this story, I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts around capital punishment in general, but also specifically in this instance? And the reason I pose the question that way is I know some people are 100% against the death penalty no matter what. They think the government should not do it. Then you also have others that are against it purely around the idea that you may get it wrong and you can't take it back. Yeah, let me know what you're thinking and why. And ultimately, with this story, and actually anything else I talked about today that stood out to you, I'd love to know your thoughts in those comments down below, because this is the end of the video. And as always, thank you for hitting that subscribe button, hitting the like button, all the good stuff. If you're looking for one to watch, I got you covered right here with some news and a podcast. Also, I got a new one coming out with Mike Birbiglia on Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. But with that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.